Right. Better said it right. Let's see if it happens. We're probably already on.
You could say it in a whisper. He's going to hear you anyway.
He'll hear you anyways.
Yeah.
That's what your listening device. I remember when I was a kid, my mom used to say, "Don't say that over the phone. They're listening." And now we have a listening device right on my hip. All right, let's see what else we got here. Let's record this. Record to the cloud. Okay. Guys, I need you to bring it down a little bit out there. Hey, guys. All right. This you can yell at. Guess what today is? It's Whiskey Wednesday. And I may remind you that is the last Whiskey Wednesday of the year.
All right.
All right. Yeah. Well, next week, if you guys want to be here for Christmas, you can wait outside and do Whiskey Wednesday on the sidewalk. And then the week after that, is New Year's Day, and you'll be way too hungover to do Whiskey Wednesday. So
every Wednesday is Whiskey Wednesday.
That's right.
Yeah.
Every Wednesday. All right, everybody.
Every day is Whiskey Wednesday.
Every day. It's a tough crowd. All right. Dan Loeser is here. He is the Single Malt Specialist for Whyte and Mackay.
Correct.
Right? Which includes the brands of Dalmore and Jura.
Dalmore and Jura predominantly, right? Yes.
Yep.
But Dalmore is our crown jewel. That's what.
Well, if I was going to pick Dalmore or Jura, I'd probably pick Dalmore.
Dalmore is what I spend the most time talking about. And but man, and then we're going to talk about Dalmore tonight. But if you're not familiar with Jura, go give it a shot. It's a phenomenal whiskey. Terrific value.
We sell that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, tonight you guys are in for a special treat. This is, as you can see, I'm wearing a tie tonight, so it must be an elevated tasting. That's what you're all not getting anything else. I just wear a tie tonight. Everything else is the same.
He's wearing shorts though.
Yes, I am. Boxers. So before we start, I'm just going to let you guys know that we are doing several pairings of food with some of the expressions tonight. And those are going to be by Chef Alina Eisenhauer. She'll be coming out and describing those as we go along. And we're also going to do, John is going to come up here and talk about a cigar when we get to the cigar malt. And you guys are all going to get to take a cigar home with you tonight, which is great. You can't smoke in the building. Westboro says no. All right, sorry.
It's a lot of flammable
liquid.
Liquid.
Imagine? A lot of flammable liquid, but can you imagine in this space? There's about 60 of them out there, all lighting up at the same time. So that you like to try? That's John. That's called the smoke show. Anyways, all right. So Dan's here tonight. We get a lot of whiskey to get to, so this is very serious business. No, not really. Mm-hmm. We're going to try some whiskey tonight. So before we go on, why don't you just give us a little bit of a breakdown about Dalmore?
Dalmore, yeah, absolutely. So we are a Highland distillery, a Highland single malt. We've been making whiskey in a little town called Alness, which is in the northern Highlands, or about 20 miles north of Inverness, for about 180 years. The distillery itself was founded on what was a working farm. Dalmore, in fact, means Grand Meadowland. And if you made your way up to the Northern Highlands into Alness, you'd see this bucolic landscape.
Exactly why, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same, looks the same way it did 180 years ago. There's a number of tremendous stories, and I could spend a couple of hours telling them about the Dalmore, but I think as we go through these expressions this evening, what really makes the Dalmore stand out in a very crowded field of single malt whiskeys is our program of exquisite cask curation. We source casks from the finest wineries and bodegas throughout the world, and we are very singular in that we can not only talk about the styles of cask that we use to mature our whiskey, but can point to specific wineries and very often point to very specific bottlings of wine that use those same casks that we then get to mature our whiskeys in. When you think about, we're all whiskey drinkers here, obviously. You think, I oversimplified by saying when you're drinking a whiskey, essentially you're drinking a barrel because the barrel accounts for such a vast proportion of the flavor and the profile and the character of a whiskey. Better barrels, better whiskey, and it is a practice that we have adhered to since the late 1800s.
Excellent. I've gotten to go to Dalmore. It's quite a magical place to go.
Yeah.
There's not it's built. There's not a lot of room. Mm-hmm. It's all very compact, and
It's pretty tight.
and thinking about the production that comes out of there is actually amazing, especially when you talk about the depth and breadth of the expressions that come out.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's right, and it's a little bit it's getting a little bit bigger. We have, if in the last couple of years, if you happen to be in the Highlands and you wanted to go visit the Dalmore, you couldn't because our facility was closed to the public. We, of course, we're still making whiskey. We have been in a multi-year process of upgrading our visitor experience there and doubling our distilling capacity, which is taking us from 8 stills, 4 spirit stills to 16. 4 and 4, additional 4 and 4. But it should be called out that, we, from the casks that we utilize to our stills, we don't quite do things the easy way. And I know that probably gets thrown around a lot in whiskey production. Our stills are an unbalanced system, which essentially means for one reason or another, they're all different sizes, which means they produce a different not qualities, but different characteristics of new make spirit. The tall stills produce a lighter, more delicate floral spirit. The shorter stills are richer, more malty spirit, and it is very unique to us. And we couldn't just put 8 more stills in. We couldn't just double our capacity by putting 8 more stills in.
Right.
So we needed to maintain
Keep it
that
unbalanced.
character and keep it unbalanced.
Right.
And so the way we did that is we had a company come in and they did a 3D laser scan of our entire current still house. And for the last 2 years, we've been building a full-scale operating replica of our still house to maintain that that unique still production method. Yeah.
What a lot of people don't understand too is that just saying that you're going to double capacity, that doesn't come to fruition for years and years and years.
Long time.
I mean, once you get it up and running, none of that distillate will make it into the stream flow of whiskey coming out of the distillery.
No.
For I think your youngest is 8, maybe
12.
12.
What you guys have is the youngest that you'll find.
That's it.
Coming from
So
directly
12
from
years.
Whyte Mackay. Yeah.
12 years from now, we'll have more whiskey than we can shake a stick at.
Yeah, if you think about it, now that they're starting to test the stills, they're running, but they're not producing anything that we're barreling necessarily. And I think about it, if things start going full speed next year, realistically, you consider, packaging and what the world's going to look like in 15 years, it's going to be close to 2040.
I see Dalmore coming out with the experimental still run collection. All the mistakes, we just bottle them anyways. And then, just put them out there.
Yeah.
What could it hurt? No, that's the point of Dalmore. They wouldn't do that.
Dalmore, the mistakes.
The mistakes.
Yeah.
Coming to you. I just don't see that happen. And this is the type of thing that Dalmore is not about. Dalmore is about tradition. Dalmore is about producing high quality. There's other than throwing of ice every once in a while, there really isn't any flamboyant or testing of the waters, so to speak. It's a staunch. This is what we produce, and we're going to keep producing it. And if we make an experiment, it's going to be. We've already tested everything. The experiment comes out. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
We're not going to give you something that we don't think is up to snuff.
I think you said it beautifully. In part because our production up until this new still house is operating and going into barrels was pretty precious. We weren't able, we're not producing as much as most other of these distilleries, single malt distilleries, and the top 10 distilleries, and so we had to be very, selective, with what we produce, and. For example, these two, which we'll speak about in more detail later, the Select Edition, these two, along with the Luminary, which was a very limited release that came out earlier this year, those are the only 3 new releases from the Dalmore in the last, outside of the Select Edition from last year.
Right. Those are part
which
of
we did taste last year.
We did taste.
Yeah.
You guys are actually lucky. You guys are getting to taste the first stuff that comes out every year because it comes out at this time.
Yeah.
And we just happened to do a tasting at this time. Yeah.
So to finish that out, we only put out, again, things that we feel definitely deserve the stamp of the Dalmore. And I think in the world of whiskey right now, there is, there's many collectors, and the collector, the enthusiasm for collectors, the collector's market has become something else entirely in the last 10 years. And we love that people want to collect our whiskeys, but we're not going to put something out for the sake of it being collectible.
Right.
Everything that we've put out has an age statement on it. And these limited releases, the Select Edition, the Luminary, not only do they have age statements, which these are 15 and 18, and the Luminary was a 16-year, but they are also natural strength, which is about as close to cask strength as you're going to get from us, non-chill filtered. So we are not only putting out exceptional whiskeys, but we are putting out some of the more purest versions of the Dalmore as well. We'd much rather put those out in the market, have whiskey drinkers be able to experience those than maybe putting something out that might be collectible, but maybe not quite as enjoyable.
Not quite as standard.
Yeah.
All right. So what I like to say is the proof is in the pudding, and the chef will probably tell me otherwise later on. But when we get to our stuff, but let's do the Dalmore 14, and that way you can try it. Oh, we got to wait 2 minutes? All right. Well, okay. All right. That's fine.
'Twas the night before Christmas.
Here comes Santa Claus. Here comes Santa Claus. All right. No, because listen, it's important. The chef is, we have some pairings tonight. So I definitely want you guys to be, try this whiskey with the pairings anyways.
And because I think owing to the fact that we use these phenomenal wine casks to age the whiskey, and I before work, I mean, I've been involved in whiskey for many years as an enthusiast. I was a bartender for many years. But for all of that, I never counted whiskey as a food beverage. It was nothing that I never drank alongside food until I started working for Whyte Mackay. And I think maybe, and I think Dalmore is a little bit more exceptional when it comes to that because of these beautiful wine casks. It is a terrific food pairing whiskey. Yeah.
Well, that's good. We're also going to have tonight, like I said, we're going to do a cigar pairing tonight without smoking cigars. But we are going to listen. The cigar malt is that we're trying tonight. Most people don't realize this is like this is like started all. Everybody has their own cigar malt, cigar cut, all these different ones that come out. I mean, Dalmore really did start all of this. It wasn't owned by Whyte Mackay at the time.
Yeah, it was.
Was it?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
when Beam,
Whyte Mackay.
Oh, Beam was the importer.
It was importer. Yeah, we bounced around through a number of importers for
and that really sort of started the whole trend of actually doing that.
Yeah, and it's not until maybe within the last 5 years or so that you've started to see other whiskey brands.
Yep. Oh, great. I'll take two, and that way we'll go this way.
Perfect. Yeah, it's been with, like I said, within the last 5 or 6 years, seeing other whiskey brands and other whiskey styles. I'm seeing an American whiskey as well, putting out whiskeys that are intended to go alongside a cigar. They go about it and they get to it in different ways than we do.
Right.
But certainly, opening that up.
All right, they're starting to bring up the food, so I think it's good that we can actually at least start talking about the 14.
Okay.
All right, so the 14 is the first one we're going to be trying tonight. Enough of us babbling on. We'll get to some whiskey. Tell us about the 14-year-old, because the 14 is, I don't think that's the newest expression that we've had. I think the Portwood is, right?
14 is, in terms of our regularly offered printable collection, it is the 14-year.
14, okay.
Yeah, that was released late in 2022, and it is, it was a number of firsts for the 14-year. It was our first U.S. exclusive.
Okay.
It is, and still is. It was the first whiskey that was where the flavor profile was largely, almost entirely crafted by Greg Glass, who is our master distiller. Many of you are familiar, I'm sure, with Richard Patterson. Even if I say that, even when I'm, talking to groups of, whiskey enthusiasts, even if you're not familiar with Richard Patterson, you've probably seen him if you're on social media because he's been memeified in all these different ways now because of his like eccentric way of tasting whiskey, and they've applied it to so many different things. But he is, Richard Patterson is in his late 70s now. He's in a semi-retirement. He is still our distiller emeritus. He's working hand in hand with Greg Glass. He is still instrumental in selecting the casks for our bottlings, which happens around November every year. And but Greg Glass is now our full-time master distiller. So this was a whiskey that was for the
championed
Dalmore,
and
that was really
developed.
fully crafted from by Greg, and this was the first time that for mass market release that the wine cask maturation is solely Pedro Jimenez.
Okay.
Right.
And for those of you who don't know, we actually have a tie to Greg. Did any of you remember our first Compass Box Rivals? Yeah. So along with Daniel Fisher, myself, John Glazier, we worked with Greg when he worked at Compass Box, and I knew then, as I'll say now, he was phenomenal to work with, and his palate was second to none.
Yeah,
it was really great working with him.
He's a savant when it comes to whiskey.
I'm just an idiot. He's a savant.
Yeah, he works in remarkable ways. Funny note is his very first job in whiskey was in his late teens was at the Dalmore
Nice.
at the tourist center.
Right, comes full circle, right?
Yeah.
Now he's basically running the place.
Long before he was making whiskey himself, and he actually is I think the word I know it's kinesthesia, right? I'm not using that word correctly, but he tastes in colors.
Yeah.
So when he is creating a flavor profile, he actually has a canvas, and he's not a painter necessarily.
Right.
It's just kind of how he sees and he registers flavors. So he'll have a canvas and he has a palette of paints, and he'll have his the tasting table out of all the barrel samples, and he'll nose and find something and throw a little splash of green, and then he'll nose something and maybe put a little red, and he kind of fills that canvas up until he
you don't want to stand next to him
until all
while
of the
he's tasting.
colors are kind of what he feels like a whiskey should be. Yeah.
Johnny, can we can have as Chef Alina back there? Has everybody got something? Did everybody get something to eat? No, I got a couple that did not get out here. He's trying to give me yours. I don't know why, but John says, "Oh, you don't have enough." Is Chef Alina out there? Is she available, or is she still dishing stuff out? Kavor, can you see if Chef is available? Yes, she is. She's coming out. She's still plating. I want to get her up here. I don't care. They can eat. Let cake. Let them eat cake. Oh no. Chef, you get the chair right there, and just throw those headphones. Should be all pretty much set. Let me give you some sound, and you should be all set.
I'm
Bring it up.
good.
You're good.
All right, I'm good.
She's good. All right. Come a little bit closer just so we can see you on the thing. There you go. All right. Tell us about our first pairing tonight.
So your first pairing is a salmon gravelox cured in the 14. So the salmon itself was cured for 2 days in the 14 with a traditional cure of salt, sugar, a little bit of black pepper and dill, and then the 14. And then it is served with cucumber that was also pickled in a vinaigrette made with the 14.
Wow.
All right. For those of you who don't know Chef Alina, this is James Beard Award winner. This is Cupcake Wars. This is Beat Bobby Flay. This is Sweet Genius. And I like to call her a good friend of mine. And I talk her into every coming year, and doing this. And she works basically for whiskey. So
I love this event.
So we want to thank her for doing it. So try that with number one that you have. Number one will be the 14. So see what you guys think. I can already smell it. I was already I'm drooling over here. I'll move my white out of the way. As always, Chef.
You get it. You get the 14.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, and just take a little bit of sip of the 14 after or before, right? Dead on. And
Wow.
you know what?
That's a home run.
Yeah, but you know the cool part of it is it's almost the Selenic that actually brings it all together. That little
Sure.
touch of saline from
Like,
everything.
Yeah.
From all together.
And it
Even the
balances.
14.
There's a sweetness
There's
to the
sweetness, right.
14 because of the
Yeah.
Pedro Jimenez casks. Yeah, and that salt balances that out really nicely.
All right, we're gonna
That's
give you
beautiful.
we're gonna give you a slight break. The next one doesn't have a
Yes.
pairing, but then you're on
Come
again.
back for the
Yeah, come
15.
back on for
All right.
that one. All right, thank you, Chef.
You're welcome.
I get all the best people.
You do.
Yeah, it's friends.
You do.
Sherry, Pedro Jimenez is a sherry. It's a dessert sherry.
Are there any sherry drinkers in the room? 2, 3,
3, 4. Not
4.
enough.
Yeah.
Listen, if you really want all this stuff to keep going, you got to start drinking cherry. I mean,
Really?
there's no way around it. It's delicious. Make sure you grab a bottle this holiday season, and have a sherry or a port. I was just telling my help this morning that it's any port in the storm, and said, "Oh, that's where you should bring your ship in. It's a storm." I go, "No, if it's storming out, you should be drinking port."
Yeah. Yeah.
So, sherry or port, everybody this holiday season, please drink a bottle. First of all, it's delicious, and second of all, you help us get great barrels emptied.
Yeah.
For sherry.
And even furthermore, with some of the expressions that we have here tonight, you can actually drink the wine that
goes
was
with it.
used for our casks, which I don't know. I kind of teed up a segue into the Portwood. If you if we should move on, but
Yeah,
I'll follow you.
No, that's great. Let's talk about. Well, first of all, what did you guys think of the 14? I think it's a lovely. For those of you who are watching at home or on a podcast, this becomes a podcast. Just like for It's the Liquor Talking. You notice we're not doing the 12 tonight, which is sort of that is the flagship, so to speak, of the Dalmore line. That's because everybody that's here tonight gets a 12 to take home with them. So we figured they could try that at home and enjoy that at home. So that's what happens tonight. So on to the Portwood.
Yes.
Now the Portwood doesn't have an age statement, but
It does not. No.
But is there an age on it?
Yeah. Every the liquid that's in the Portwood reserves 12 to 15 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. So no
So
age
why not
statement.
why not? I'm just curious.
No,
Why
no,
not
it's a
put-
good question. So
I know it gave me an answer finished so I could finish this. So
when it comes to largely when it comes to our sherry casks that we utilize. Now, for the 14-year we use a 15-year-old Pedro Jimenez Solera cask. This comes from Gonzales Baez. Gonzales Baez is one of the oldest and most reputable sherry houses in the south of Spain. Our relationship with them goes back to really our pioneering distillers from the 1860s, the Mackenzies, who built a relationship with them back in the late 1800s. The casks we get from them then are very much the same, very similar to the casks that we get from them today. I totally lost my train of thought.
chugga chugga.
Chugga chugga. With those casks, I found my train. I got back on. With those casks, because we've been working with that winery for so long, our relationship is so very close and so very tight. And the selection process of casks with them is a very intimate process. We know what we're getting with them.
Okay.
We've got 100.
This isn't what they call like a run through. Like a lot of places now
Absolutely.
they do port. They make port that's terrible, or quick,
never
quick
intended to be
for-
consumed.
Consumed.
Yeah.
Throw it in barrel for so long. It goes on to the next barrel to season the next barrel.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
till it's completely and then basically dumped.
And they dump it. Yeah, and you're exactly right. It's kind of why I asked who here drinks sherry, or even who here drinks port, because
Well, who drinks port?
more people.
There's more people.
Okay, good. Okay,
I have my wife hooked on port. That's the way I'm doing my part.
Yeah. The reason I ask largely is because that's representative, particularly when it comes to sherry. That's representative of the challenges that the whiskey industry faces when sourcing casks that held sherry. And the way that the industry has responded to that largely is to use seasoned casks, sherry seasoned casks. You'll see it on all kinds of bottles, sherry seasoned casks, sherry seasoned oak. And what that is essentially is a brand new cask, either made from a European or American oak, that is then filled with a sherry. That sherry is called Sobre Tablas. It is a sherry that was never intended for human consumption. It's a sherry that, for whiskey makers, was really only intended to make wood taste like sherry.
Okay.
And it's in that cask for a minimum of 6 months. That's a minimum of 6 months for a distillery to be able to say they use sherry seasoned oak, and a maximum of 3 years, and generally it's about a year and a half. And then that, like you were saying, that wine then goes into a season another barrel, or then becomes cooking sherry, sherry vinegar, but never anything intended to be consumed. That is how the industry has responded to these lack of sherry barrels. The barrels that we are sourcing, if we're talking about sherry, I know we're moving on to the Portwood Reserve, but talking about sherry, are casks that were used by Gonzalez Baez. They are the Solera casks, or the oldest, bottom-most casks in these giant stacked row of casks where they bottle their wines out of, and they've been maturing sherry for many decades.
Now, how many times when you get one of those casks, how many times will you use that cask?
One time.
One.
Yeah, it's so silly.
Really? Yeah. Then what happens? I mean, it is sort of silly because that cask, it has more to give.
Well, much of our whiskey stays in barrels for a very, very long period of time.
Okay.
Right? You know, the age statements, the youngest whiskey that's on in that bottle. But for our flavor profile, for flavor maturation, for an expression, we only use the cask once.
Where does the cask go after? Does it go somewhere
else?
Or do you give it to
what we
broker?
will use it for after within the distillery is in situ. So let's say, jumping ahead a little bit, we are talking about the 15-year, right? That's these 3 different sherry casks. It starts out in bourbon casks. All of our whiskeys start out in first fill bourbon casks. And then the 15-year goes into 3 different sherry casks. We reunite those whiskeys in a previously used sherry cask.
Oh, okay.
So at that point, we're not looking for sherry expression.
Right. You're looking at almost neutrality.
We're looking for something that is, a
add
permeable vessel.
But it won't add anything but sherry to the whiskey too.
If it adds anything, it's adding something that is within the flavor profile of the whiskey. But that's where we'll reuse a barrel. Yeah. So
I just want to tell everybody too, when you talk about seasoned casks, because I think it's important for people to understand. When you talk about casks that are used for seasoning, a seasoned cask, and you put that in and it goes on to the next cask, a lot of that stuff is done in a lot of the first fill of that sherry that they're going to use for seasoned cask. That's first fill, and it's the first time that barrel has seen any liquid.
Anything.
So if you guys, a lot of you guys are bourbon, who's a bourbon guy in here? Bourbon people? Okay. You know that no matter what, when you put something in the first time, it grabs tannins, it grabs a lot of flavors that are coming out of the wood. So when they go to use that to the second one, it's lost a lot of its sherry character. Not only that, it's carrying over some of the harshness from the wood and going into another new barrel. That's going to give it more harshness. And this is why it's never meant for consumption, because you're not adding anything good to it. It's not going, oh, now it's better, let's move it to the next test. Now it's better, let's move it to, no, it's worse.
And even in sherry production.
And they'll have to vary the cask that they use in storage in order to even that out.
And even in sherry production.
Did I just confuse everybody?
Even in sherry production, they need to season their casks.
Right.
So a lot of what whiskey makers get is essentially the beginning of the sherry making process.
Right.
Sherry makers need to have their casks seasoned for at least 3 years before they actually start utilizing them to make sherry.
Because they don't want any of those off flavors of the new barrel going into their sherry.
And so when we're getting casks that, like the Matusla Oloroso, the Apostoles, these are 2 casks that are used in the 15-year. These are casks that, because they are from the Solera, and sherry producers will continue to use casks, Solera casks, so long as they remain whole and don't leak. So we can get casks that are 2 to 3 times as, the 30-year-old bottling. And when you do that, even if it's just at 30 years, there are liters of wine, literally
Still in there,
liters of
still in the
wine that
wood.
have soaked
Soaked
into
into
that
the wood.
barrel. And we use a process called shipped wet, and that goes for our first fill bourbon casks and all of
You're
our
not
wine
breaking the
casks.
barrels down. You're shipping them wet and
with
whole.
with some of the liquid
And whole.
remaining in the barrel. So I imagine it as though it's sort of rolling out of one warehouse and
Get
rolling into
the-
ours.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not that far of a trip, too.
Yeah.
All right. So let's
So-
get to, yes, Jim. Maple syrup barrel. Yep. Have you ever put, what he's asking is if you ever taken a sherry barrel, put Dalmore in it, and then sent it back and had sherry put into that barrel?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I'll call somebody.
I'll call somebody. Yeah, I'm gonna get.
No,
I'm gonna get two.
that's quite
get two.
interesting. Thank you.
Wait, don't eat this yet. I'm way too late, aren't I? Anyways, because now we're behind, which is good
Okay.
for the food. So let's go to number 2, which is the Portwood.
Portwood Reserve,
All right.
12 to 15 years old. The reason that there is no age statement was kind of what got us on this, and because knowing reliably what we can expect in terms of flavor profile from these sherry casks, these port barrels. We've been working with Graham's for as long as we've been utilizing the Portwood Reserve, which is I think since 2015
Is
when
it
that
a
first came out.
coincidence that's my wife's favorite port? No, it's not.
The barrels that we utilize for the Portwood Reserve are the same barrels that Graham's uses for their 10-year tawny, available upstairs. I checked, and the winemakers aren't necessarily, and particularly Graham's, for sure Graham's. I was fortunate enough to go to Portugal over the summer, and we met with the family that owns Graham's, and we got to taste some really lovely port. They're not thinking about our whiskeys when they use these barrels.
No.
So that is sort of that also poses a challenge, because that means some of these barrels are maybe a little bit more expressive than
Right.
others. So this allows us the flexibility to bottle it at a consistent flavor profile of the expression, rather than kind of be locked in by an age statement.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I'm just like, I know it's more expensive, so I also understand that even if the youngest you're using is 12, it would have to say 12, and it is more expensive to do Portwood. So you're talking at $100, over $100.
Yeah.
People are like, I'm not going to spend $100 on a 12-year-old.
Yeah, sure.
So
Sure,
that
could
does
be
try
part
to
of it.
play into
Yeah.
marketing, but I get it.
Sure.
All right. So what do you guys think of the Portwood? It proves with water.
That's a great point. This is
It
in our
does.
principal collection, and that doesn't include these. This is the highest ABV. This is 96.5, or I'm sorry. What is it? What did I say?
96.5. But
No, that's 93 proof.
93.
93 proof. 46.5.
46.5. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Now it's not at body temperature anymore.
Yeah. This is 93 proof. It is a higher proof is it helps cut through some of that sweetness that we get
Yep.
from these casks. This is also the whiskey in our principal collection that does not see any chill filtration, and that is also to complement the port casks.
All right. Good. You like port cask? This is actually one of the, I hate to say it because it's not cheap, but it's one of the least inexpensive, great examples of Portwood finish.
Yeah.
I might add on
Yeah.
that.
I call
Is
it
Chef
sort of
available over there? I don't know if she's still plating, but we're gonna start the next one. Here she comes.
Here she comes.
All right. Did everybody like the Portwood? Yes. Yes. I think it's really good. I love that one. It's a great one for us to recommend at the store because it is such a good Portwood. At not $200-300 for a Portwood, because one of those get
and
up
you
there.
can get a very reasonably priced bottle of Graham's 10-year and have them alongside each other, and it's phenomenal.
You're gonna move your mic up just a little bit, huh? There you go. All right. So for the next one that we're gonna do, this is now we're up to the 15-year-old, and we're gonna do a place. Oh, I'm sorry. We're gonna do a placement on that. I gotta keep forgetting. I gotta take that up and down. We're gonna do a food pairing on this one, and everybody got it. Did they already eat it? You already ate it, didn't you? You have them with the whiskey. It's so cool. All right. So what do we got for us now, Chef?
So with the 15, you have a whipped goat cheese with dates, caramelized onions, a little bit of honey, and a little bit of bacon for a little salt there. tiny bit of rosemary, and then a sesame crisp. So you can just take it all and put it all together on the sesame cracker. And it does have a splash of the 15 cooked in with the dates as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 15 is number 3. You have that together. Man, that's good. All right, I need like 3 more of these, and that'll be perfect.
That's so good.
Thank you very much, Chef. This
You're
one
welcome.
goes really, really well with this. What do you guys think of the pairing? Do you guys, just let me ask, typically, do you have food with your whiskey? Yes? No? Does this open any doors for you that maybe you should? Yes? No?
I think the next one will.
All right. Oh,
The cigar malt
next
one
one.
will.
Oh, cigar malt one. All right. This is, I think this goes really well.
I really like this one.
This is terrific.
Thank you, Chef. I appreciate
welcome.
that. All right. Now we got 15, and now, they started to, you need to go back there because we're doing another one, right?
Well, we have a break before the next one, right?
We're doing the 15 now, so
So this was for the 15.
This was for the 15.
this was for the 15,
Great.
right?
Perfect
I'm
segue.
ready. All right, so this is for the 15. So now we're on number 4. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm lost track. I'm enjoying myself too much, Chef. Now the next one is cigar malt. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. All right, we'll do it. We'll just eat it, and then you can explain what we had. That's okay. We're okay. No one's mad at that. All right. So now we got the 15, right?
15. This is the whiskey. This is the whiskey of this. I've fortunate to have access to many of our whiskeys. I drink the 15 more often than anything else. It is the one that I'm generally drinking at home.
I find that's a lot true in a lot of sort of brands. The 15 is sort of really a good sweet spot.
Yeah, I think it is. And
everybody wants the 21. Everybody wants the 18.
Sure. I think
but
there is a sweet spot in 15. Yeah, and for our 15, it's the whiskey that most of the people who work at our distillery, it's the whiskey that they enjoy the most as well, that they're drinking the most often. This is a whiskey that within our principal collection, I think really summarizes this relationship with these beautiful sherry casks that we use. This spends 12 years in first fill, spends a minimum of 3 years, divided into 3 separate sherry casks. So a 30-year-old Methuselah sherry, which is a bottling from Gonzalez Bias. It is a cream style of sherry, which means they take a dry style and then they sweeten it with Pedro Jimenez, which is solely a very sweet style of wine. So this Methuselah is a bottling of Oloroso sweetened with Pedro Jimenez. Another cask that is utilized is a cask that they utilize for their bottling called Apostles, which is another cream style. That uses a Palo Cortado, which is another dry style of sherry, and that is sweetened with Pedro Jimenez. And then Amoroso, which is a very sweet style of cream sherry, which heavily favors the Pedro Jimenez and then uses a smaller amount of Oloroso.
And that one also is it's sweet, but it's sort of like nutty. Too, right?
Yeah, and I think nuttiness is something that you will come across in the 15-year. Very good sherries have a nuttiness to them, and to me, the 15-year noses almost like a dry sherry. The Apostles, that bottling of the wine, really, that sherry itself really kind of sings on the nose. It is on the palate. Ginger, baking spices. There's that nuttiness, like I said. It's lively. It is really generous. I think the reason I drink it so often is because I don't feel incredibly precious about it at 15 years. But I'm always getting something from it every time I drink it. I think it's a really satisfying.
I'm just getting everybody prepared for the next.
Sure thing.
I feel like an orchestra up here.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yes, you are.
this one, that one, everybody.
Yeah, you're the expediter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all falling apart. Yes, I'm the expediter. But anyways, we'll go with that. So because the next one we're gonna get, I'm gonna have John come up here. John, stretch it out. Get your butt up here. We're handing out. You got cigars with you that you're gonna show? All right. Get in that seat. Put your headphones on. I got your mic up already. I didn't take it down from Chef. All right. Pull that mic in front of your mouth there.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Excellent. Hey, everybody.
right.
How you doing?
John is our cigar guy for tonight. John, you want to give everybody your name and your title?
Yeah, I'm
Chief Cook and Bottle Washer.
Yeah, exactly. I'm John Cazzaro. I'm what they call an independent cigar broker, which means I represent some different cigar companies. Tonight, I'm here representing Aganorsa Leaf, which is a company that I
Say that again because I didn't know how to pronounce it. Say it one more.
It's Aganorsa Leaf.
Aganorsa Leaf.
And the name of the company, that's actually an acronym. It's a Spanish acronym. Don't ask me what it means. I know the first word is agriculture.
Okay.
So I guess I'll jump ahead a little bit. Aganorsa is kind of a unique company in that there's no Mr. Aganorsa, no Miss Aganorsa.
Not named after somebody.
It's not named after somebody. The founder of the company, his name is Eduardo Fernandez. And he's not cigar royalty. He's a Spaniard. And believe it or not, this whole company, who is now the largest grower of premium cigar tobacco in Nicaragua, the largest grower in Nicaragua, he started in pizza, of all things. In Spain, decades ago, he started a company called Telepizza, which grew into...
Is that what you called them and said, "Tell her I want a pizza"?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It turned into
like delivery system.
Turned into the Pizza Hut of Spain.
Wow.
And he sold the company for what I would term not an insignificant amount of money.
Yeah. Well, you know how they say how to make how to make a little money in the cigar industry?
Start with a lot.
Yep, that's it.
So and yeah,
Don't move off screen though.
Start with
You're moving
a
off screen.
Start with a pizza.
I didn't see that. Okay, there we are. Now I can see what's going on. So anyway, yeah. His passion was he was always very passionate about tobacco, and in the late 80s, early 90s, if you wanted to learn about tobacco, where did you go? He went to Cuba. So he went to Cuba, and what happened was he found that Cuba, because of the way Cuba is politically, there's no real incentive to work until you're 65. So people tend to retire early. So he found a bunch of guys that, quite frankly, weren't a lot older than me. I'm 54 years old, that were retired out of the cigar industry. And he said, well, why don't you guys come with me to Nicaragua and let's figure this thing out? And that's what they did. He found the best talent that he could find in Nicaragua. He brought them to, the best talent he could find in Cuba.
Right.
He brought them to Nicaragua, and that's what got the Aganorsa growing operation off the ground. They had their own brand called Casa Fernandez for a while. And then about 5 years ago, they rebranded to Aganorsa Leaf, and it's been a great ride ever since. Like I said, the largest grower of cigar tobacco in Nicaragua, which means they, A, get the first pick of everything that they grow, and B, as a consumer, you're not paying for a middleman or somebody to...
A broker that's going to move leaf.
Right, move leaf here, there, and
right.
everywhere. So typically, these cigars tend to smoke way above their price point, which is great. So the cigar I gave out tonight, this is the part of their core line. They have a core line of cigars.
Everybody got one of these, right?
Everybody should have one of these. They've got a core line of cigars, different sizes. There's 4 different wrappers. There's a Maduro, which is a darker cigar, Corojo, which is pretty much Aganorsa's stock in trade, their Corojo leaf. There's a Habano, and there's this cigar right here, the Connecticut. Why did I choose the Connecticut tonight? It's the mildest cigar, and this isn't a dedicated cigar event. So I wanted something that was mild enough for somebody that maybe this is their first cigar, and they're going to try this. But it's also got enough flavor that if you are an experienced cigar smoker, you can still appreciate it.
Yeah, that's nice.
And I wanted to say thank you to Ryan. I've been doing business with Julio's for a long, long time. There's not a lot of people that if they came to me and said, "Hey, I want you to do a non-smoking event a week before Christmas," there's a very, very short list of people
I'm glad I'm on it.
that
then.
would that I would do that for. But
I'm on a lot of short lists, but it's
you-
usually
you-
not good.
No, no, and one of the reasons I would do that is I love talking to people that maybe aren't hardcore cigar people, but maybe they're interested. I like to share knowledge. I think it really benefits the companies I work for. An educated consumer is my best friend. I like to say that. I stole that from a chain in New York City. I
Yep.
can't remember who it is. But thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. And
Well,
I'd
thank
also
you.
like to thank Dalmore for leaning into this whole cigar thing.
Hey.
Because I've tried to do promotions with other spirit companies before. I'm not going to name names, but some companies, the minute you bring up smoking, they don't want to know.
Well, they don't have a
away.
cigar blend.
Yeah,
malt.
this
I
is
mean,
like I
it's
said,
just
you're leaning into it,
right.
man.
Oh, for sure.
I appreciate
For
that
sure.
very, very much.
For sure. No,
So-
they're the bosom buddies.
Yeah,
for sure.
no, it's
Well, I mean, you got to sort of have that. I mean, that's one of those type of things that, you know, if you're gonna say it, it can't be just when it suits you.
Sure.
It's and it's this maltier type thing. So,
Yeah.
John, thank you for
My pleasure.
bringing these up here.
Thank you,
Everybody's got one.
Thank
no,
you,
you can't
everybody.
smoke them here tonight. But
Yeah.
thanks, John, for coming in. We really appreciate it. If hopefully I'm hoping that well, here's the thing. I want you to try a little bit of the cigar malt, but I don't want you to drink it all. Because we have food to go with this, and I don't think everybody's got all the food yet, right? Has everybody got everyone? I see everybody.
Close.
They still have it. So we're on number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cigar malt.
Cigar malt.
All right. So try some of this and smell the cigar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you can get an idea of like the flavor profiles that actually go with the cigar.
It's interesting because when I talk about the cigar malt, it's the one that very often it's one I'm talking about most frequently because the name is very intriguing,
Right.
to people who are unfamiliar with it. People expect it to be a smoky whiskey, which of course
Right.
it not only is it not a smoky whiskey, but I consider it probably the fruitiest whiskey in our collection.
Well, I think it's a misnomer. Everybody, and I think I've tried some of the people that have sort of dove into the same thing is making a cigar blend or a cigar this or that. They automatically think it's supposed to be the most powerful thing that they can make.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to do it. It's supposed to complement the cigar.
It's supposed to complement the cigar. And if you think about the spirits that were traditionally consumed alongside cigars, right? Rum, certainly, cognacs, calvadoses, armagnacs, brandies. And these are all spirits that are intrinsically soft, round, sweet spirits because that fruit complements that smoke and that spice, that work that the cigar is already doing.
That's right.
And I think for our cigar malt, the closest thing you get to an actual cigar, and I don't think it's intentional, but it's a note that I find on the whiskey itself. If you smell your cigar and smell the whiskey, I think our whiskey kind of noses that sweetness, that sort of sweet fermented quality of
Yeah.
a really beautiful cigar. That I pick up on our whiskey, but that's about where the similarities end, and then it's more about being complementary.
Yeah, it's also malt. Malt is sweet.
Yeah.
Malt is sweet. We
Yeah.
talk about corn all the time being sweet, but malt itself, malty meat is a sweetness.
It is.
So, all right, chef. I think we
All right.
got them all. I think everybody's got the new dish for tonight
Next
that's going
dish.
with the cigar
Yes.
malt.
So I love the cigar malt. I remember it from last year. And the thing is about cigar malt is it pairs really well with sweet or with savory food. So you can
Okay.
do either way.
Right. Yeah.
For savory foods, something really like this is really rich and creamy. And so this is a lamb meatball and the seasonings in it are, so it's basically a riff on haggis because I figured everybody didn't want me to serve them haggis.
I would love that. Yeah, kidding me?
So it's a lamb meatball, but with the seasoning, the spices that you would normally find in haggis, like coriander and allspice, a tiny bit of cinnamon, but you don't really even know the cinnamon's there. And then a cream sauce, which is often served with haggis, which is double cream with a little bit of whiskey in it.
Mhm.
And then a mashed potato because mashed potato.
Need some caddies.
Yeah.
We were talking. The chef and I were talking about this earlier, and my French grandmother made meat stuffing.
Tortilla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people have said like, oh, you're not gonna like haggis. First time I went to have haggis, and oh, you're not gonna like it. I go, this is like being at home. This is great. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, it's got all this other stuff, and I go, I never knew what my grandma was serving me. All I knew it tasted great, and it was all about the spices.
Yeah.
you know, and that's really what it is all about. It's all about the spice. Now, I don't know if I can cut this and eat this, but I'm going to have a little bit.
Yeah, you kind of have to just pick the whole meatball.
Yeah. Meatball on the stick. Just put it on the fork, I think.
That's how I
It's
feel about haggis. People say the idea of it scares them, and I say, well, do you eat sausage?
Yeah.
Well,
It's just the organ.
I don't want to tell
think
you about
the
hot dogs.
organ meat and the texture for
Yeah.
some people, and the fact
Yeah,
that
it
it's
can be.
organ meat. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the spices of this go really, really well with the cigar malt. I like it.
Phenomenal.
All right. You
right.
did this to yourself, and I'm going to point this out.
Did.
So
I did a fourth one just
we were
because
supposed to
I
do
felt
three,
like
and I gave her a break in between each one that she was supposed to
I
do.
wasn't supposed to do one with cigar malt, but I really like cigar malt, so
And she goes, I did another one.
So
Is
glad
that
you
okay?
did.
I go, no one's going to complain, but like you made it difficult for yourself.
yeah. So
So-
I got to go do the last
Yeah,
one.
go.
for you.
Yeah, she's gonna go do the last one here. I'm just enjoying this.
Wow.
It's really
So
actually
great.
really- right?
Yeah.
Like, all right.
So
This is
good.
what I'm talking about. Thank you, Chef. This is why she gets to work for whiskey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every time I've asked her to do something, the guys were really great. They gave me some samples and some bottles to send to Chef. She always nails like the pairings.
Mhm.
She really does.
I remember from last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Terrific. Yeah. Really. And again, like I was saying,
That's good.
the cigar malt is, yeah. When I talk about drinking, the Dalmore alongside food, it's very often it's the cigar malt for many of the reasons she said, and for many of the reasons like the quality of the whiskey. Like I said, it's for the reasons that the whiskey is as a terrific accompaniment to a cigar.
Yeah.
Because it balances out that smoke and that spice. It makes it a tremendous accompaniment to, like this dish, right? Meats that have smoky quality to them.
Right.
If you put something on the grill, anything that's seen a bit of smoke or char, have some cigar malt alongside it, and it is
Are we changing
phenomenal.
the people that would not have? Are we changing your minds a little bit of people that would not have food with whiskey? Yes. Well, keep them coming. Awesome. All right. So, you like this spicy meatball, do you? It is really good, and it's so like it's one of those things that sort of surprises you that you're not thinking that you're gonna. First of all, most people go, "Oh, I don't think that's gonna go."
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I should
Yeah.
have. Now, the one thing that you could always safe bet is chocolate, just in case you're
Sure.
wondering.
Sure.
And as Chef was talking earlier, she goes, "I'm not doing chocolate." Because it's just it's one of those type of things. If you can't really sort of get something to match up, like chocolate always goes.
It does. It
You
does.
know what I mean?
And,
It's
and
one of those universal things that it depends on if you want to do dark chocolate or milk chocolate, but chocolate
Sure.
always goes.
Sure. We actually, and we encapsulate the flavor profile of our whiskey by saying it is a chocolate orange. You get a tremendous amount of chocolatiness from those Oloroso sherry casks, orange and citrus as well. And so if you've ever had those foil wrapped oranges that you smack on a table and you peel off the little slices, that's sort of a simplification of how we describe the flavor profile of our whiskey. So chocolate is absolutely spot on.
All right. We are going to, I think they're going to hand out one more food pairing for the next whiskey, but I think it's sort of interesting to talk about the King Alexander.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
Well,
this is like sort of iconic.
I want to
right?
say one thing about the cigar.
Oh,
malt,
yeah, absolutely.
just because we've touched on it with these. So no age statement on the cigar malt. It is 15 to 18 years old. The casks that are utilized in the cigar malt are, of course, the first fill bourbon casks, the 30-year-old Oloroso, those Methuselah casks that I spoke about. We've introduced a third style of cask, a third wine style of cask, I guess fourth if you include the Portwood, with the cigar malt, and that is that is a cask that I think makes it very complementary to, excuse me, enjoying a cigar is Cabernet Sauvignon Barrique for the
okay.
Cigar Malt Reserve. Again, though, holding not just to a wine style, but a specific winery. So we source our Bordeaux casks from Chateau Marbouzet. They're a left bank Bordeaux producer.
Very well-known left bank wine producer.
And they are known within Bordeaux production as a winery that matures their Bordeaux longer than other Bordeaux producers, which is phenomenal for us because that just means a bit more time for that wine to get into that cask.
Excuse me. It is really good, and it's funny now. you're seeing more red wine cask whiskeys come down the pike.
Yep. We have a lot of
Go ahead. What's the question? Does that cask profile change periodically for the cigar malt or for everything? For the cigar malt.
so as this as the cigar malt exists today, this does not change. But the cigar malt was initially introduced in the late 90s. It was a pet project of Richard Patterson, who enjoyed fine cigars. And he thought, well, I have this beautiful palette of whiskeys. Let me make the cigar malt accompaniment to it. And it did go through a couple of different iterations until when we finally started to release it around 2015 as it is right now.
I also made him a hero to a lot of cigar aficionados, including Marvin Jankin, who promoted this through his endeavors into cigars too.
Yeah.
So that helped him. Yes, sir. What makes it a cigar malt? What makes it a cigar malt is the sort of combinations of wine casks that they're using, bringing it to a maltiness that will. You can do one of two ways, and chefs probably speak better to this. You can either contrast the flavor, or you can complement the flavor. Right. See, this is why we work well today. See how you just asked that question. But the cigar malt was something that he said, Patterson said, I'm going to make a whiskey single malt that goes with cigar. And he set out to do that. So wherever that took him to do it, that's what he did. It's a naming of the malt, but it's also the idea of how do I make something complement.
Yeah.
And those casks that they're using are the blender's way of saying these are what I feel complement a cigar. Does that make more sense that way? Yeah. Okay. Now, chef. Oh, you're not on. I took you off again. I'm sorry. We had some background noise. Go ahead.
So for the last pairing with King Alexander, this one, that's what I was going to talk about with this, is you can either, with food pairings, you can contrast or you can complement. For this one, I chose to complement to bump up the flavors of the King Alexander. So on the palate, this whiskey is, I mean, you could talk about it better than me, but citrus, vanilla. Yep. So that's the flavors of the dessert that you have in front of you. Is this citrus cream? The cream is orange blossom and orange. And then with a little bit of marmalade on top, which is calamansi lime, which calamansi limes are, they taste like if a lime, orange, and a mandarin all mixed together. So citrusy, but a little bitter.
And
the whiskey also, if you like tasting, again, creme brulee, vanilla, which the marmalade has that little bit of burnt, like creme brulee flavor to it. So, yeah.
All right, I'm going to try it now.
The flavor.
I'm trying it now, chef. Don't go anywhere until I had it.
I'm not saying it because you're sitting next to me. That is such a tremendous accompaniment, a compliment to the King Alexander, because I find the King Alexander is within our principal collection. I feel like it's a really delicate whiskey, and it is very floral on the nose, and like you said, like, you know, caramel or the vanilla coming through. Man, that is just so spot on. That is terrific.
Okay, so I'm going to let everybody, we're going to do a little inside baseball. So before we started tonight, Chef said, I have two that are interchangeable. And she said, I started thinking I want to do what we're having now, the dessert with the cigar malt, but it'll go with the King Alexander. And then we sort of went back and forth of what we think should happen, how it should go. This is the best surprise and the best, like, this really goes. I'm so glad that we sort of flipped the switch on this, because I think the meatball definitely went with the cigar malt, and it's bigger flavors too, by the way, which a cigar would be.
Yeah.
I mean, the meatball almost mimicked the cigar in this instant, and then the dessert being with the King Alexander. I don't think you could get something so harmonious together as these two flavors. It's.
Thank you. I think the marmalade's a big part of it because it's floral. Yeah.
Exactly. This is beautiful. What do you guys think, right?
What was the name of that?
Calamansi lime.
Calamansi lime.
They are.
I'm going to corner the market on calamansi lime now.
They look you can pick them when they're green all the way. So I actually have, these are from my tree. Actually, I have a tree in my living, a calamansi lime tree.
Sure you do. Why wouldn't you have a tree of
They,
calamansi lime?
one of the ones you can grow inside, and they bear fruit like almost year round.
Wow.
They're crazy, but you can pick them when they're green on the outside and they're orange in the middle, or you can let them ripen. These were ripened until they were orange on the outside and orange in the middle, and they're a lime, and they're the size of a lime. But again, they taste floral.
Wow.
And they taste like lime, orange, mandarin, like everything all together. Yeah.
This is so good.
That's
This like
bonkers.
I mean, when you're tasting the whiskey with this, it's tough to figure out the edge. You know,
Yeah.
like when you drink something and you eat something at the same time, you go like, "Oh, there's that and there's this." In your palate, you can tell. I just found with this one is at one point I couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah.
What am I drinking or am I drinking or tasting the dessert? I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
And that's
Awesome.
that's amazing.
So great.
Amazing.
Really great.
Glad you like it.
Your job is sort of done. You want to stay up here for the last two?
Sure.
All right.
You want some whiskey?
I'll drink.
We get Chef. Chef's been looking forward to this all night. She's like, I get to drink some whiskey. Yay. Well, tell us a little bit about the King Alexander anyways, because we haven't sort of really talked about it. We've just
Yeah.
been drinking it.
So King Alexander, no age statement. The whiskey in this bottle is 15 to 20 years old. For this one in particular, it's challenging to put an age statement on it. This is a whiskey that sees 6 different casks.
Okay.
First fill bourbon casks, and then a number of the casks that we have on the table already. It sees port casks, the 30-year-old sherry casks, the Cabernet Sauvignon barrique as well, in addition to Madeira and Marsala casks. This is, if you have any whiskey left from the first 4, and then you go back and taste this, which is why I think what you made was such an incredible compliment to what you made, is that it is.
You've been here before, right? Okay.
It is.
You know that ain't happening.
You never know. Open up the 12 and chug out of the bottle.
No, don't do that.
Don't do
Please
that.
don't do that.
Please don't do that. It's for a whiskey that is as old as it is, that sees as much oak as it does. It is a very delicate whiskey.
But it's
very,
floral.
very
It's lively.
very
It's-
floral in the nose.
Yeah, it's not flabby.
Um,
It's
No,
there. It's alive.
nimble. It's soft. I think it exemplifies this really friendly, a friendly spirit that I think is present throughout all the Dalmore. The whiskey itself, all of our whiskeys, I think, are very welcoming. Right? You don't have to be an expert. You can drink. Wow, that's good. And you kind of get that's good. I think it's a mark of a very good. Anything, right? If you're eating or drinking something, or if you're
In New England,
watching a
it's-
movie or
yeah.
seeing a piece of art or something, and you immediately go, wow, before you start analyzing it. If you watch a movie and you leave the movie and you go, wow, that was a great movie, and you forget that you're watching the movie, or eating a great dish, having a terrific bite of something, and the first thing, your reaction is not, oh, lime. Your first reaction is, right? Like it's that thing that kind of surpasses your analytics and just kind of hits you right in that sort of sensory place. And I think that the King Alexander kind of does that. And
I could tell that because I had you speak about that, so I could finish that.
yeah.
Yeah. So if you notice, I was eating that while you were talking
Yeah.
about it.
But
Because that's
for-
perfect.
But for a whiskey that is so delicate, I think that I've done it. I've done let's just say a handful of events with these whiskeys, and pairing food with the King Alexander has always been the greatest challenge, and that is like perfect. That has been so phenomenal.
So they'll be taking chef's recipe around the country, but now you're going to have to produce. Now you have to start a farm of these limes in your house, so that we can do that. So.
Calamansi lime.
Yeah. All right. Now, sort of like what you guys have got to do like 2 years in a row is you're being introduced to the 2 new expressions that are for this year. And we're going to do the 2006 first?
2009.
9 first, excuse me.
Yes.
Sorry, first.
2009,
which is number 6.
which is
On your
number
plate.
6. Yeah.
Which is number 6 on your
Yeah.
your
Which
palate.
is a 15 year.
which is a 15.
Let's just throw some more numbers out there.
Numbers.
Yeah. Last year
Great.
was even more confusing because the 2008 was the 15 and the 2005 was an 18, and I got
That's
that
right.
screwed up all the time. So with the Select Edition, this is globally the 3rd release of these whiskeys. The first release was the 2004 and the 2007. Those were only released just predominantly in the UK and in Europe. And the rest of the world are known as vintages, vintage 15, vintage 18. We can't use the word vintage in the US when it comes to whiskeys. Just the laws surrounding that, the use of that word.
The hell with the government. I'm sorry.
Wine and
Yeah.
and all of that. And before someone says it, there is, yes, signatory vintage. Those whiskeys, you may be familiar with it, but signatory vintage is their name. So they get to use it because it's their name. These, rather than being called vintages or not being able to be called vintages, we call them select edition. And this is for me as a whiskey drinker. These are phenomenal because before we started releasing these, to experience whiskeys like this from the Dalmore, whiskeys that are about as close to cask strength as you're going to get from us, whiskeys that are natural strength, much close to cask strength, non-chill filtered, natural color, easy, is you would have to either be at the distillery or you'd have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to get some of our very exclusive and rare bottlings. And these are making these very unique bottles and bottlings very accessible, you know, and different maturation stories than our 15 and our 18 year, which is, I think, a very important call out. So what we're drinking now, this vintage 15, this sees 3 different sherry casks after bourbon casks. This actually goes into Graham's 10-year tawny port and the Methuselah 30-year Oloroso sherry cask. So it sees sherry and port. It is bottled at 48.9% ABV. And the only other time that we have used that combination of casks is our 25-year. So we're getting sort of a 15-year cask strength version of
Junior.
25-year. Yeah, our
25
25-year
junior.
And the story really with these, the reason why the box has this beautiful blue color is it's sort of reminiscent of what the Highlands look like, just sort of the color of the skies in the Highlands around November when Greg and Richard Patterson go and select these casks. And there are a handful of casks and combinations of casks that they find are just sing and should be released at a higher proof. And so that's what started this.
This is a
bottling.
wine barrel bomb.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, I mean, I get like, you get all sorts of flavors from dates to raisins to, I get like a white, fresh white mushroom sort of flavor to this one also.
You might think I'm crazy, but when you smell it,
Yeah.
it actually, on the nose, not the flavor at all, but
Okay.
the nose, vanilla,
Yep.
but vanilla Coke.
Oh, wow.
Okay. No,
Smell it
cola
again.
is not.
Cola, like the
cola is
cola,
not.
the flavors of a cola
Yep.
syrup.
Mm.
The smell of
Well,
a
now
cola
that you
syrup,
said that, I
right?
can't subliminally not smell it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Damn her. I owe you one now. Really good. I love the nose. Yeah. Add water.
I was just going to say.
The caramel pops.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the caramel, Coke syrup.
Yeah. Very, very good. I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
I might like that one too much. All right.
Again, a 15.
Yeah,
right?
I know. You keep making my point.
Again, a 15 right there. Yeah.
All right. So, okay. So now we're going to do the 2006.
2006, which is the 18 year. This is, and you know the story of the select edition, so we'll just jump straight to the maturation. This is after the bourbon casks, goes also into the 30-year Methuselah Oloroso. If you can guess already, that is the particular sherry cask that we utilize the most. So it sees the 30-year-old sherry casks and then goes into Amoroso sherry casks. So essentially 2 out of the 3 of the casks that we use for our 15-year, and that's what goes into this. This is 47.2% ABV.
And how old is this one? This is
18.
18. This is the 2006, right? This last one?
Yes.
I got them. They're reversed on my sheet. That's why I'm asking.
If you're looking at
something
them,
on the finish?
The 2009 is darker.
Yeah,
Between the
2009
two.
is darker.
It is
yeah.
the darker one of the two. That's those.
This is really good too. I don't know.
Buttery.
I think this is sort of
Wow.
this is very buttery. It has a creaminess to it. That's what you're tasting is melted butter.
Yeah.
Wow, it's bottom. Yeah.
It's got a little bit of that salinic in that too, which adds to the butter feeling.
I get a little licorice on this as well.
Little anise.
Yeah.
It's really good. Now, but so different from the two. There's two different whiskeys,
different.
very different
Very
whiskeys.
different. Very different. Both clearly from the Dalmore. It's our spirit, but expressive in different ways from us.
Definitely. All right.
Well, I'm not just saying this because I'm sitting up here with you, as you said about my food. But Ryan will attest to this. I'm actually have always really been a bourbon drinker
Okay.
and was never a huge fan of Scotch until Dalmore.
I'm so glad to hear it. That's my story too.
Yep.
Truthfully, that's my story too. I was very much, and still to this day, very selective about single malts. But it took actually a friend of mine who is truly coincidentally, now the vice president of Whyte Mackay Americas. But we were friends many years ago, and we had this friendly rivalry where I was primarily a bourbon drinker, and he would always try and get me to drink single malts, and I generally wouldn't like them. And he poured me the Dalmore. This was several years ago, and it changed my mind entirely.
There's
Now,
a couple. There's a couple
just not be
times.
chasing these another single malts though.
But like even like what does set some of these apart too is and especially I think it's part of Greg's influence too, is balance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're balanced whiskey. We were just talking about the other night how it's cool to have things that are unbalanced with a heavy flavor profile in one direction,
Mm-hmm.
but you never drink a lot of it.
Yeah.
When it's balanced, you keep going back to it, and you can drink more of it.
Yeah.
Because it's just balanced. Yes, sir.
They
We have
are
3 bottles, sir, and we
That's
drank
it.
one of them. So
That's
no, I'm just
it.
teasing. That's it. But they are
is
limited
it.
edition.
They are limited. I don't have the exact numbers for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Watch this. How much do we have this in house right now? But no, how many do you guys have at the warehouse? Not how many do I have? 20 cases?
Yeah.
20 bottles? 20 bottles.
The allocation for the U.S. for both of these is around a couple hundred cases.
So not a lot.
Yeah.
Get them while you can.
Yeah.
Six per case, by the way, I might add. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? That brings us to the end. We tried everything. We ate everything. We didn't smoke everything, but you can do that at home.
Let's do it again.
No,
let's go back to the
start
beginning.
it off.
Let's do
Get
it
enough
again.
food. All right, let's go. I want to thank, of course, Dan for being here and going through all of these with us. I really do
My
appreciate
pleasure.
that.
My pleasure. Thanks for
Welcome
having me.
back anytime, as
Thank
long
you.
as you bring whiskey.
Yep.
And Chef Alina Eisenhauer is welcome back anytime, whether she brings food or not, but she usually brings food. Chef Alina for doing some fantastic pairings tonight. Thank you, both of you.
Yep.
Thank you. We're gonna say bye to everybody on Facebook that's watching this. We have quite a few people watching us now on Facebook. This also becomes a podcast. Look for It's the Liquor Talking. You can find it, and we're gonna sign off from there. You don't go anywhere. I get some stuff to go through with you, everybody on Facebook and the podcast. Goodbye. You really should have been here. It was freaking awesome, and that's it. That's an understatement. Thank you. Now we'll get rid of this. Hold on, we gotta get rid of this. Come on.